We have to.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good morning, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news in the Middle East, where we just learned an agreement has been reached to extend the temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas for 2 days. This news comes as we wait for a fourth group of hostages that is expected to be released today. The extension also comes just hours before the truce was supposed to expire at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I want to go right now to NBC's Richard Engel. Richard, a lot we don't know here. Tell us what we do know at this point.
So, Lester, today is day 4 of an agreed upon 4-day truce. And every day since Friday, the Israelis have been releasing Palestinian prisoners in exchange for Hamas releasing hostages, women and children on both sides. And that deal was supposed to expire. It is being brokered by Qatar and Egypt with a lot of support from the United States. And just a short while ago, Hamas made an announcement, also an Egyptian official and a Qatari official, all saying that they had agreed to 2 more days. So that could potentially allow Hamas to free more hostages who are currently held in Gaza. They still have more women and children to free, and allow the Israelis to release more Palestinian prisoners, also women and minors. The larger picture is that this is a sign of progress. It shows that this 4-day truce, and the idea was once it ended, the hostilities would resume immediately, and that Israel's offensive would immediately resume. Now it does seem that this 4-day truce, which seems to be becoming a 6-day truce, that is the most encouraging sign, or among the most encouraging signs we've seen since this conflict began.
Yeah, Richard, do we know what the holdup is, though, with the releases today, the part of the original agreement, the truce agreement?
Every day there has been negotiations going right down to the wire, because a list will be put out. There will be disagreements on the list. The Israelis are accusing Hamas justifiably of releasing some people, separating families, not releasing the people they had agreed upon. So there are a lot of terms and names that are being disputed, and the modalities of how these people are supposed to be transported. One time they were transported generally they've been transported out of Egypt. One time, because one of the hostages was sick, they went straight from Gaza to Israel. It is still early enough, so it is in the day, so it is possible we could still see before the end of tonight another release of prisoners, as had been expected. So it is not guaranteed that today there will not be another release, but the fact that the two sides, according to Hamas and 2 Arab diplomats, have agreed to a 2-day extension does take off some of the pressure if we don't see a release in the next several hours, or if the release is not as satisfactory to the two sides as it could have been.
All right, Richard, I'll ask you to stand by. Let me go to NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. What is the read right now from the White House, Monica?
Well, Lester, I can tell you a White House official confirms that this agreement has been reached to extend the truce between Israel and Hamas by at least these 2 days. This is something that the Biden administration had been working on actively, with the president making calls all weekend long. We know he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, and they specifically discussed this possibility, with the U.S. pushing for this extension with the hopes of getting more hostages released. Of course, that first American, the dual Israeli-American citizen released yesterday, that 4-year-old girl, Abigail Adan, who turned 4 in captivity on Friday after her parents were murdered by Hamas, and she was taken hostage for 50 days before being released yesterday back to some of her family members in Israel. That is the first American to be released and returned. It is unclear whether there will be more Americans released on a potential list today. That is something the White House is still tracking very closely, monitoring to see if it will be possible. But now, given this extension, they will likely also point to the fact that that could now happen tomorrow or in the coming days. But they have talked about this in such a fluid and active manner. They don't want to get ahead of any of these very fragile negotiations because they don't want to derail anything, because the slightest hiccup can do that before getting back on track. But the president said very clearly yesterday that he will not rest until all of the hostages can be released, including, again, something like 9 more Americans potentially. But there are questions, Lester, about whether all of those Americans are being held by Hamas or potentially by other groups, and how that could work to release them. But we know behind the scenes here, White House officials have been a very active part of the negotiations. They continue really hour by hour to be a part of these discussions to see how long this extension can go. The U.S. hope is that it can continue beyond the 2 days, but they really have told me they're going to take this one day at a time. Lester.
Monica, thank you. Let me go back to Richard Engel in Israel. Richard, the longer there is a pause, does it make it harder for the Israelis to resume their offensive should it reach that point?
And that's really the million-dollar question, Lester. Is this taking us on a road to a definitive ceasefire, a stopping of hostilities, at least for now? No one assumes that Hamas and Israel are ever going to become close friends, but can this be a way out of this current crisis? According to the Israeli government, no. The Israeli government has said time and time again, including an Israeli government spokesman this morning and Prime Minister Netanyahu over the weekend, that what is being discussed right now is solely and exclusively focused on the hostages, that Israel has not given up its goal of destroying Hamas, has not given up its goal of regime change and displacing Hamas in Gaza. And the Israeli government says that this is only to allow for Hamas to release its prisoners. However, there are many Arab negotiators, people who have been working on this deal, who do hope that this is the start of a larger deal, the start of a larger ceasefire that could de-escalate things, potentially restart the peace process, bring us in the direction of a two-state solution that President Biden has been discussing. But right now, according to the Israelis, this is only about the hostages, and it is only a one day at a time agreement, and has no implication for the long-term peace. But we will see if that holds over the next couple of days.
And obviously our wait right now is for word of the hostages, the transfers of the Palestinians. But what do we know about humanitarian aid? How much is getting in the country during this pause in fighting?
Quite a bit. We're talking about a few hundred trucks, 200 trucks over the weekend, another 100 trucks after that. So not the 1 truck, 2 trucks, 3 trucks that we're getting in with extensive negotiations at the most intense phases of this conflict. Also getting in are different kinds of supplies, fuel, cooking oil, things that were totally banned before. So this truce, which is now being extended by 2 days, has allowed a bit of breathing room for the people of Gaza to get some desperately needed supplies into their homes and into their mouths.
All right, a lot of pieces in motion. Richard, thank you. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com, and tonight on NBC Nightly News. Obviously, we'll be back on the air if events warrant throughout the day. For now, I'm Lester Holt in New York. Thank you for watching, and good day.